of these troubled times, our fifth objective, a new world order.
What's up, everybody? Jay Alletto back here with another video here on youtube.com/PWP Nation. I'm here with two old friends. It's been many, many years since I've actually seen these two beautiful faces, and that is Steve Regalizio and Ryan Attia. They've had their nicknames throughout the years, but I will not bring them up on this podcast. We want to keep this thing pretty professional if we can, but we've got a lot of stories, and they also have a podcast of their own, and that's what we're covering today. It is called the Baseballed Podcast, or just Baseballed. I want to ask you guys about that. We'll talk a little bit about that. But I'm also interested in finding out what the hell is going on with the MLB Hall of Fame, the Baseball Hall of Fame, as I should say, and the controversy surrounding some of these Hall of Fame caliber players who are being kept out for whatever reason. So let's just jump right into this. Steve, I want to kick it over to you. Dude, I'm looking on social media yesterday, and I see Curt Schilling is outspoken as I've ever seen the guy about not even accepting a Hall of Fame induction from the writers. And I, as far as I know, there have been no baseball players that have been accepted into this year's Hall of Fame. So why don't you tell us a little bit about that and some of the backstory with what's going on with the Cooperstown Baseball Hall of Fame?
Well, first off, that was an amazing intro. I never experienced something like that before. But I would like to say that we're new friends all over again. Old friends becoming new friends, linking back up here. And that's done with the magic of podcast. So speaking of the Hall of Fame, I understand that you kind of want me to let you know my opinions of it. And I do have a lot to say here. The fact that there was not one player that got inducted this year is kind of a slap in the face to baseball, and here's why. You can disagree with me here, but I feel like if you look at the names, you could look at just Barry Bonds. I understand steroids, this is the reason. Roger Clemens, Curt Schilling, Gary Sheffield. You look at all of them, they all have the hitters have 500 home runs or more. The pitchers are just dominating, and I feel like you almost have to kind of ease off this whole witch hunt with steroids, because it's in the past now, and it was an era where everybody was doing it. And the whole cliche of, hey, everyone's doing it, so it must be okay. That's not what I'm trying to say. What I am trying to say is that when everyone's on an even playing field and taking steroids, the guys that aren't taking steroids, well, they're just shit out of luck, because I personally would have done it. I would have injected it into my ass. I would have put cream on my shoulders, whatever it takes. If I found out that somebody else was taking steroids. So Barry Bonds, you look at him all-time home run leader. You can't take that away. Single season, all-time, the average, the speed that he had when he was younger before he took steroids. So even if you take, just look at Barry Bonds, because it's easier to just dissect him. If you take him pre-steroids, and I think we could all kind of, as baseball fans, see the difference, because his neck got huge and his head grew like 3 hat sizes. A guy like that, before he ever did steroids, he was an amazing player, hurt the Mets in particular, and we're both Met fans, me and Ryan. So that's just disgusting to me. I think this is something that you need to take away from the writers, because I think the writers are bringing too much politics in it. And Jay, you know how I feel about politics and sports mixing. They shouldn't mix. They should be separate. So I don't like that. Ryan, I want to hear what your take on it. I want to see if you think this is fair. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, look, clearly now for years, the writers have been taking a stance that more often than not, they're not voting these guys in. Now, if I'm correct, I believe that especially the leaders like Clemens, Bonds, etc., they're creeping up there. Every year they're getting a little closer and a little closer to that 75%. But for someone like Bonds, I think next year's the last year that he has a chance to even make it before it goes to the Veterans Committee and however that works. Mm-hmm. So they're getting closer, but these guys are just still trying to make a hard stance of, oh, we're not going to let steroid guys in. Put it in perspective. Next year now, you have someone like A-Rod, first chance to be a Hall of Famer. David Ortiz, someone who's the first chance to be a Hall of Famer. Now, to me, David Ortiz is going to be the test, because he's a guy everyone loves. The media loves him, all that kind of stuff. If he gets in, but these guys don't get in, that just proves exactly that it's not about the steroids. It's about the fact that Bonds was a complete asshole to the media. It's about the fact that, Schilling is outspoken, is putting it mildly, about, his views and how he lets everyone know about it. These guys, they all have these personal reasons, it seems like, why they're not letting them in. Clemens is another one where he was just, nobody seemed to like him anymore. And they're putting all these reasons into it, and then they're calling it steroids. Well, to me, Ortiz is the test, because if he gets in, there's no excuse for these other guys not to get in.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, right on. And here's what I just want to kind of pivot off that point a little bit, is like, now we're in here in 2021 and we've seen the evolution of the athlete. I think it's fair to say that across all the sports, the NFL, we've got these phenoms like Patrick Mahomes at quarterback, and in basketball, we've got this guy Zion and Luka, and these are just incredible athletes. There's a lot of hype around them. And baseball seems to have those same kind of athletes popping up who don't seem to need the steroids nowadays. And I think the entire sport has evolved. So, Steve, if you're looking at today's baseball compared to the baseball of the Barry Bonds, Roger Clemens, Curt Schilling era, the era that we grew up in and loved so much, how would you think that the game has improved over those years? Has it evolved in a positive way, or are the players better now than they were back then, especially without the performance-enhancing drugs?
So just to get clear on this, so do you mean like old school baseball, like 90s, 2000s compared to now? Or are you talking about old school, old time baseball, like dead ball era?
No, let's talk specifically about the steroid era, when steroids started coming into fruition. I believe that would be the 80s, probably, right? Like the late 80s and mid 80s at some point, the same time they hit other sports like the NFL and professional wrestling, which I'm a big fan of, and boxing and all those other sports. How was it different? Like, how was it different? Like, could today's players, being all natural, and the sport and the athlete evolving, would they be able to hang with those players in the steroid era? Would it be the same thing, or are today's players more talented because of the evolution of the athlete?
Well, I'll tell you this. Steroids to me is always a good thing when it comes to sports. Now, when is it a bad thing? It's a bad thing when you abuse the hell out of it. It's a bad thing when you become, I don't know if you remember that after school special, the guy named Bear that was standing outside the GNC or wherever it was and showed him his leg and what it did to his leg with steroids. But that's just an example. That kind of permeated with me. Steroids is very good if you know how to use it, if you use it correctly. Now, I haven't been fortunate enough in my life to have used steroids. Me being the guy that I am, I'm a competitive guy and I love the sport of baseball. I would like nothing more than to have a couple of shots on probably my right ass cheek, because that just seems more comfortable. A little more fat on it. I don't know. But if you talk about steroids versus non-steroids, it's a very hard debate to have. It's very hard debate. It's almost like comparing Barry Bonds and Babe Ruth, because they were in so different eras. So I would say that the guys now are in excellent shape like they've never been before. However, it's a hurt to the game because there's too much in shape. So what I mean by that, Jay, and you work out, obviously, you're a young strapping man. When you're too tight, when you're all wound up and you got the 6-pack and everything is just muscle and there's no fat, it's very easy to pull something. So that could be a detriment. But to say that these athletes are more athletic than ever, yes, that's definitely a fair thing to say. Now, here's how I want to respond to your question, Jay. If you made it an even playing field, and let's just say that you gave both sides steroids, if you gave the 90s players steroids and you gave the 2000 players steroids, and then you gave the ones of 2020 and 2021 steroids, if you did that, I believe that would be something that you couldn't decide unless you ran through some kind of simulation. Right. But I will tell you that growing up, and it might be because of nostalgia of being young, but growing up, when I looked at these guys, they were superheroes. They weren't human beings. They were something out of a comic book. I mean, Barry Bonds is a great example, but let's not forget about old Mark McGuire and Sammy Sosa grew about 5 head sizes. Their biceps were probably bigger than Hulk Hogan's and Macho Man's Randy Savage in their prime, and they had some pretty big biceps. Okay, you know the 20-inch pythons, Jay.
24-inch pythons, brother, running wild, Hulkamania, brother.
And that's good. And I do want to talk about wrestling and how it corresponds to steroids. So it's a good segue. But to answer your question in short, there's no way to really know. But I know without steroids versus non-steroids, I'm picking steroids any day of the week. I got guys like Jeff Bagwell, I got guys like Mark McGuire. I've got guys like Sammy Sosa, Bonds, and beyond. I hate Roger Clemens with a passion. But does he belong in the Hall of Fame? Probably. And here's a guy who thrived off steroids, yes, but he was unbelievable without it. And maybe it's amphetamines too. You can't forget about amphetamines. That was something that prevented them from being injured. That's something that prevented them from being too exhausted. And that's why you had guys going into their 40s and playing the best they ever did in their 40s because of this stuff. And don't forget about our old friend cocaine. Cocaine was used along with amphetamines, along with steroids. And when you do the triple-headed monster, when you get all three of those, you probably have a heart attack. But if you could survive the heart attack, you got yourself a hell of an athlete who's like indestructible. I would send these people to war. That's like the super soldiers I'm talking about.
Well, that's it. I mean, you have the cocaine to give you a heart attack, and then you have the steroids to strengthen up the heart muscle to survive the heart attack.
Mm-hmm.
So, it's all about the balance. But no, I mean, to me, though, that's a very important distinction. I think it's almost an impossible one to make. You have the difference of someone who wouldn't be a Hall of Fame caliber player without steroids and someone who already was and took the steroids to either just extend their career or to keep from getting injured. I mean, that is, to me, an important distinction because you have someone like Bonds, like you said, he was probably going to be a Hall of Famer regardless. McGuire, who knows, though? If he doesn't have the steroids, he doesn't have all those home runs. Does he have anything else to make him a Hall of Fame caliber? Probably not, honestly.
I mean, look, it's a great argument to have, and it's an awesome question, Jay. I mean, look, at baseball, me and Ryan here, Ryan and I, if I'm doing correct English, we talk, we cover just about everything, but we cover the comedy of it, the comedy, and that part of it, making people laugh and is part of entertainment, right? Obviously, and football, not as much maybe. But wrestling, in the wrestling world, it's pure entertainment. And I found myself just laughing. I'm not, no disrespect to the sport itself, but I just laugh my ass off when I watch these guys because it's like a drama and these guys are great actors and great actresses. Well, not really. They're just more like, mannequins, but they really do a great job with this. And it's sports entertainment. So we need to stop right now with all this crap about like, doing quote unquote the right thing. The right thing, first of all, was for Bud Selig to actually do something about it when it was happening. He let it happen. We can't forget about that. If anyone should be held out of the Hall of Fame, it's Bud Selig. Now, Mark McGuire, Rafael Palmeiro. I mean, the list goes on and on. Our old friend Lenny Dykstra, who we actually talked to on a separate podcast that went down the shitter. We covered a lot when we talked to these guys, and Lenny Dykstra is a great example because Lenny Dykstra did all three. Lenny Dykstra did the amphetamines. Lenny Dykstra did the cocaine. Lenny Dykstra did the steroids, and he admitted to all three, I believe. And he's just the open guy. So what we really need to do is kind of revert back to this old way where we kind of forgive the little, don't sweat the small stuff, okay? Is it you taking steroids? Is it your son taking steroids? No. And I understand it's the whole argument that, oh, well, the kids see it, they're going to want to do it. They're going to want to do it anyway if they want to do it. Let's face it. I want to do steroids, and I know it's not good. So that's my plug. I mean, if anyone's listening on the Twitter sphere or the YouTube, please send me some.
Oh, dude, hell yeah, man. I've actually done them before. In my early mid 20s, I messed around with them a little bit, and it's a really wild experience. It definitely puts you in a different mind frame when you're in the gym, pumping iron, brother, clanging and banging. I see you, Ryan, you got a little bit jacked, huh? You've been clanging and banging or what?
Yeah, man, I try. I mean, obviously I'm not getting, those nice injections that really keep me going way beyond, my capacity, but, I'd be open to do it. I mean, whether it's long hours in the gym, long hours podcasting, whatever it is, you need something to keep you going. And if it's steroids, so be it. If it's anything else, so be it.
Yeah, and we're at the age where it's going to become a medical reason for us to do it anyway, because now we're at the point where our testosterone levels are starting to drop, and that also happens in sports. Like this happens in the UFC. I'm a big UFC fan, MMA fan, and a lot of those fighters, as they were getting older, were getting on the juice. They were taking testosterone replacement therapy, and they were coming in the octagon and kicking ass. They were tearing it up like they were 10 years previously. And then when they started the USADA drug testing, the randomized drug testing, it became a different ballgame. A lot of them failed drug tests, and it kind of pushed many of those athletes out of the sport. And here's where I want to kind of continue on this topic for. There you go. There's one guy, Brock Lesnar, right on. Just one more question about baseball real quick. And I'm going to pivot a little bit. This does have to do with the Hall of Fame discussion, but in kind of a different section. And I'm a sports card junkie. I am into sports cards. I love that business. It's actually completely on fire right now. And I'm talking all the sports: baseball, basketball, football, anything that's in season, hockey, soccer, wrestling, UFC. They're all crushing it. Now, with that being said, I want to hear who the top 5 players are that are on your guys' radar. I'm going to start with Steve. Top 5 players in Major League Baseball. You can start at 5, come on down to 1. I know I'm kind of putting you on the spot without making a list. So if it's not your real 5, give me 5. Give me 5 players, because I'm an old fan. I grew up loving the Atlanta Braves, which you guys probably hate me for, but loving the Atlanta Braves. Watched WCW on TBS from 6:05 to 8:05, basically every Saturday night of my childhood. And right after that, a Braves game would come on. So I kind of got hooked on that team. But that era are the players that I know, those Hall of Famers I'm familiar with, where I can go back and buy their rookie cards now and say, okay, this is an investment for 10, 20 years from now. I want to know who the players I should be buying now. Steve, go right ahead.
All right. So, yeah, you did put me on the spot, but that's okay. I'm prepared for this. So
let's go.
2020, are we talking like 21? We're talking about current right now, right?
You give me the all-star players that, like, how if I went back to 1995, I'm going to say, Ken Griffey Jr., Frank Thomas, Roger Clemens. I'm going to give you those 5 major players. Give me 5 major players in the game right now who, anyone listening should keep their eye on if they want to buy sports cards, or if they want to dig a little deeper into that particular investment. What players might be on their radar?
All right. Well, first off, I think the best shortstop in the game has to be on there. Arguably, maybe one of the best players in the game. That's why he's in my top 5. Francisco Lindor. You may have heard of him. Switch hitting phenom from Puerto Rico. The guy is amazing. Fast, homer city. A lot of power there. Contact, great glove, great range. He's got to be on there. I'm going to name 3 here, so that's 1. Ryan, you can probably finish this, so that way we're not taking away each other's thunder. If you want to fill in the last 2. So that's definitely my number 1. Look out. The Mets have him, so haha. Secondly, another guy you have to keep your eye on always is Ronald Acuna. Ronald Acuna is for the same reasons, man. He has it all. He's fast. He's got the speed. He's got the defense. Hell of an arm out there in the outfield. He plays for the Atlanta Braves. You mentioned Atlanta Braves. They're back on it, by the way. They're probably gonna, be good for a while again, because they produce young studs out of Georgia like it's a factory. I don't know how they do it, but they produce them. And then number 3, look, it's easier for me just to say position players, because if I go down the road of pitchers, we'll never make it.
And that's it anyway, Steve. Sorry to cut you off, but that's it. And I should have added this with baseball cards specifically. Pitchers are kind of a little bit off the radar. They're not who are heavily invested in, like maybe the top 1 or 2. I know Verlander rookies were on fire for a while. Some other pitchers, I can't remember their names, but some of the rookie cards of pitchers that are top echelon Cy Young type guys, they blow up. But for the most part, pitchers just don't really. There's not a lot of buying power there for pitchers.
No, and the last one I have, I guess, for a position player here, if in lieu of being biased, I mean, how could you not want Pete Alonso's rookie card? Pete Alonso had one of the best rookie seasons ever. 53 home runs is one thing, but to be able to play his position when the world was telling us that he couldn't play first base to save his life, and they were so dead wrong about that. He played very good that year. 2020 is another story. Now, 2020 is not a real season. We can't forget that. There's a whole slew of players. The only people that actually did good in 2020 were people that were diagnosed with COVID, with COVID-19. I mean, not to be insensitive here, but last time I checked, if you have a sickness or a virus, it weakens you. But these players seem to have got stronger. I don't know if they let them take steroids to kind of make up for it. I don't know. But they all won it. So I'm not going to include them in my list, because I just think that was a fluke. So look, if we're not doing pitchers, number 3, Pete Alonso. Ryan, what do you have for the last 2?
Yeah, I mean, for me, if you're talking about going into the future, who are you looking at as an absolute stud? You have to look at Fernando Tatis Jr. I mean, this kid is just lighting the world on fire. He's going to be the next, the big thing. People are, who knows if he's going to be the next Mike Trout in terms of a bat and a steady 300 hitter and the home runs. But I mean, this kid is playing absolute fire on defense, on offense. Like he's can't miss at this point. He's absolutely can't miss.
Yeah,
you have
Tatis, right?
Yes, Ed Tatis.
Yep, I agree.
Tatis is one. Another one to keep it in the NL East. Juan Soto. It's another guy where every time, being a Mets fan, whenever we play the Nationals, every time this guy comes up, you're afraid he's just going to go deep, no matter what the situation is, whether it's the first inning, whether it's the 9th inning. He's someone you do not ever, ever, ever want to face with the game on the line.
And he grabs his nuts a lot too, which is very disturbing.
He does. So I mean, you don't want to face him, in the bathroom. You don't want to face him at the plate. You don't want to face him anywhere. But I mean, just to throw in one more wild card though. I mean, this is probably a given, but Mike Trout. Come on, Mike Trout.
Oh God, how could I forget Mike Trout?
You got to throw Mike Trout in that because this guy's going to end up being one of the greats of all time, probably when it's all said and done.
Well, here's the thing.
His rookie Mike Trout's rookie card in a perfect graded 10. Now this is what they're doing with cards. Now they're grading them. They put them in slabs. You send them in. They get graded. Mike Trout's rookie card went for 6 figures recently. Graded perfect.
And for a card in this day and age, that's incredible because
a piece of cardboard with a picture on it, bro.
With the way they mass produce these things, you don't think of like cards in like the 2000s being worth anything. For 6 figures, it's insane.
Yeah, and again, perfect condition. I'm talking about a 10, a grade of 1 to 10, perfect condition. I don't know if there was a signature on it or not, but it might have been. They have these parallel cards, right? So you'll have the rookie card, and then you'll have another one that has like a gold border, and it'll be like only 5 of those are produced. And then there'll be another one with like a silver border, and only 1 of those will be produced. So it's like they have the rarity out there for some of these players.
So I would like to think of this as a way that you would want younger players when we're talking about baseball cards. And I would refer to Doug Rush here, our man Doug Rush, who's also a proud Toms River South alumni. Give it up.
Correct.
Who used to write for the Chieftain, so he has a lot of experience with writing about sports. So he would know a lot more about the card collecting business, and I think that we would have to get him on one day to kind of pick his brain. This is not by any stretch my area. I can tell you who the best guys are. That I would have no problem doing. I think I'd be a great scout. But when you're talking about baseball cards, and here's my theory, I think you got to, and the reason why I said the first 3 that I did was not because I'm biased and I'm a Mets fan. It's because, guys like Pete Alonso, for example, are just starting out. So when you think about stock, and that's what everything really is, it's about stock. His value right now, if you were to go purchase his rookie card, has actually probably dropped because of last year and because of a lot of people's last year. In 2020, it dropped a little bit. So if you still can get his rookie card, I think that's personally the number one person that you should definitely go out and get his rookie card, because you could probably get it cheaper right now. And, maybe go to spring training or go to a game if they allow fans and have him sign the ball for you, or ticket, whatever. And you could actually have Pete Alonso, his card or his signature. I mean, that's valuable as hell because his potential, I'm thinking here, is sky high. I mean, he hit 53 home runs in his first season.
Wow, he did. Holy crap. I didn't know that. Wow. That's huge for a rookie year. Holy shit.
Yeah.
Most ever.
Yeah, wow. Absolutely. So, I mean, look, all these are great answers. Ryan, coming through with the Tatis, the Soto, and then also the Mike Trout, who please forgive me, Michael Trout. I know that you're a native of New Jersey. You're kind of on the west side of New Jersey. I don't get down with those guys. I'm more of like I'm more of the East Coast guy because I'm a New York sports fan, right? Ryan, I'm going to pick on Ryan here. I wish I could say the same about him because he's a New York Met fan, and I give him a lot of credit for doing that. But to like the Eagles on the other side of the year, I mean, that's kind of gross.
Hey, why don't you keep your comments to yourself over there?
Oh,
look, maybe that's why I thought of Mike Trout. But when it comes to Trout, despite the fact that he's also an Eagles fan, which is fantastic, I mean, he's been so good for so long, you almost forget about it. So I can forgive you for that. You know, it's like the furniture. It's like you don't even notice it anymore because it's just you look at it every year. He's going to have 300 batting average. He's going
Right.
to have 30 home runs. He's going to have 100 plus RBIs, 100 plus runs scored. So I can forgive you for that.
Yeah,
I can't
look,
forgive you for your other comments, but I can forgive you for that.
well, maybe we can work it out. But look, that's not an excuse to be an Eagles fan. Never was. But if I think that if you know if you're a New York guy, you're a New York guy. And Mike Trout, I'm going way off subject here, but Mike Trout, here's a guy that already has that value. So if you're thinking about rookie cards, he probably already cost a lot for his rookie card, probably because you could almost like sign, seal, delivered Stevie Wonder, and say that like this guy is automatically a Hall of Famer. He's going to be, unless he gets caught for steroids. Obviously, we know how that works. But look, when we're talking about Hall of Famers, here's a guy who's a shoo-in. God forbid he treats the media bad or he takes a little bit of HGH one day. He's going to get kept out. So I think that just back to our Hall of Fame thing. This is something that what they're doing now obviously affects what happens later.